And the search for the New York Jets defensive coordinator goes on. On this edition of the Wednesday night live show, we are going to talk about the remaining 7 candidates for the job, rank them from 7 to 1. I like to do my rankings. I like to do my countdowns. And so we're going to do one of those for you tonight. I got some thoughts on Sean McDermott getting let go from Buffalo, how that affects the Jets. And I got a pretty detailed 3 and out to get into. I got a lot to say, particularly about the world of baseball. And hey, maybe we'll spin the wheel tonight. We got Jets trivia a little bit later. Guys, you know what's up. It's Wednesday night. It's 7 p.m. and we are live. Well, welcome everybody to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm Watch2K99. Thank you as always for taking the time to join me for our weekly Wednesday night live extravaganza. Appreciate everybody hanging out. I see we got some folks already hanging out in the chat. They came ready to go. Feel free to drop a comment. Got any questions? Just any thoughts on your mind? If you love America, what the heck? Leave a comment, leave a thumbs up. All that good stuff helps to support the channel, all that fun stuff. I actually will say this. I have a new setup on my side. I have expanded to 2 monitors. Before I was using a monitor and a tablet. It was very archaic. I would have one tablet. I'd have my notes here on the tablet while working on the laptop. But I've upgraded to a second monitor. I've got the thing hooked up. So I got my notes over to the side, which I do. I do some things off the cuff, but you know me, I like to do my prep work. I try to come as ready as I can. So hopefully everything will go smoothly tonight. Hey, the fact that both displays are working and there's something different on both screens, I consider that a victory. All right, guys, I see the great David D is here. There we go. Good to see you here, my friend. All right, guys, we're going to I gotta just pop in. Yep, I was so focused on the whatchamacallit, on all the content that I've got to update, get the slides imported in. So we will do that. There we go. Continue. See all kinds of new things. I keep trying to get a little bit better at the technology thing as I keep on going. And technology is great when it works, but when it doesn't work, it is just the biggest pain in the neck, isn't it? All right, so we got 1 in, now we got 2 in, and then I've only got one more thing to import. We do have, of course, we have another Jets playoff trivia question, so you know it's an old school question, right? Okay, but that's all coming a little bit later. Let's talk about what's on my mind in a segment that, let's do a little bit of 3 and out right now. All right, here we go. A few things on my mind. First of all, congratulations to the New York Giants for hiring John Harbaugh. It feels like a new era for that franchise. Listening to that press conference, it just reminded me of why for years I wanted the Jets to hire him. He just feels like a leader. He feels like the boss, and no questions asked, really. There really isn't much else to be said about that except credit to the Giants for bringing him in. As far as hockey goes, I got to spend just 1 minute here on my disaster of a hockey team. Earlier this week, the New York Rangers sent out the letter, the sequel, basically saying, we quit because we suck right now. Okay, this time Chris Drury, the embattled general manager, sends it out. He may be the only person in New York less popular than Aaron Glenn right now, and the mayor, but we won't go there. But basically, he is all but confirming the rebuild, or as they try to term it, a retool. We're not rebuilding, we're just retooling. Retooling is what we're doing, meaning we're not as far away as it looks, even though we make some of the biggest brain-dead hockey plays that even a peewee team wouldn't make. Now, the Rangers did a rebuild like this a couple of years ago. It worked to an extent. They made 2 Eastern Conference Finals, but the last 2 years, the wheels haven't fallen off. The wheels came off and wound up somewhere in outer space. They are the only team in the Eastern Conference. 16 teams in the Eastern Conference. The Rangers are the only one with a below 500 record. And the only thing that matters for the rest of the season is how many players can they trade before the trade deadline, and then in turn, what assets can they get back with draft picks and prospects. And even then, do I trust this whole staff to develop them? Not really. Let's spend a minute here on baseball because we need to spend a few minutes on the New York Mets. First of all, Carlos Beltran, congratulations, inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame. It looks as though it will be with a Mets cap, not a Royals cap. And to me, if that's true, that is revenge, sir, for 2015. That is revenge for the World Series. The Royals beat the Mets in the World Series, but Carlos Beltran going in the Hall of Fame with a Mets cap on, give it to me. But this was his fourth year of eligibility. Got 84% of the votes. Beltran was an all-star 9 times, 3 gold gloves, hit .279 over 20 years with over 2,700 hits, 435 home runs, 312 stolen bases. The only 3 other players to get 27 hits, 400 home runs, and 300 steals are Barry Bonds, Willie Mays, and Alex Rodriguez. And amazingly, only one of them as of today is in the Hall of Fame. And I think we all know why. Andrew Jones goes in as well. Not my favorite player, considering he played for my least favorite team. 78.4% of the votes. Congratulations. It took him 9 years to get in. So considering he was primarily a defensive player, now, to me, it is a crime to not have Keith Hernandez and Omar Vizquel in the Hall of Fame. Just saying. A couple other notes. Andy Pettitte jumped from 27.9% of the votes to 48.5%. Pretty good. And you got to get to at least 75% to get in. I think we could all pretty much be resigned. Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez will just not get in. David Wright is slowly moving up. He made up to 14.8% of the votes, up 6% from last year. Now, I'm under no disillusion that David Wright will make the Hall of Fame one day. I'm actually surprised he's not off the ballot already. Tragically, Chase Utley looks like he'll get in. He came in 3rd overall at 59% of the votes. You might say in a couple of years, he could very well slide his way in. See where I'm going with there? But then we get to the current team. And I said about this team last week, even after the Bo Bichette signing, the mix on the Mets, it just wasn't quite right. Too many holes on defense, too many questions on defense, really. I felt they still needed at least one more outfielder. There were too many infielders. Well, late Tuesday night, the Mets take a big step towards solving those issues. They trade for Luis Robert Jr. from the Chicago White Sox. They give up Luis Angel Acuna and a low-A pitcher that nobody had ever heard of. So Robert's contract, he has $20 million due to him this season, and then a $20 million team option for 2027, or the Mets can buy it out for just $2 million. So a very, very good contract. Couple positives. He's young. He's 28 years old. He has elite bat speed. He is a very fast runner, like 90% sprint speed in all of baseball. Great range in center field. He will give the Mets excellent center field defense. Now, they could get that with Tyrone Taylor, but it's not like he was going to get, you didn't put Tyrone Taylor in the lineup for his bat. You put him in there for his defense. Okay, Robert has much higher potential as far as his bat goes. As far as the things that are kind of in the middle, his power, he did hit over 35 home runs one year, but his power has not been great. His throwing arm is around mediocre to a little better than mediocre. The negatives there are 2 things. His plate discipline. He chases pitches all over the place. Met fans will probably get frustrated when he swings at, a bad strike 3 in the dirt on it, when a curveball goes in the dirt. And his durability has not been good, especially in the legs. It's a good thing he could still run as well as he can, but he has had different quad and hamstring and calf injuries. So the Mets have to do all they can to help Robert be healthy for this season. So his speed, it really replaces Acuna anyway, and I don't mind Acuna going. With the glut of infielders this team has, he was not going to play much except late game situations. Now, I had advocated for a while. I wanted to see Acuna play center field. The Mets never gave him that opportunity in the big leagues. So if they're not going to do that, bring in a talented, center fielder who can do the job, and he can. So now I look at the Mets lineup and where it could go. Francisco Lindor, shortstop. Juan Soto, right field. Bo Bichette, third base. I'll put that top 3 against anybody in the league. Then a DH, Jorge Polanco, I'm thinking, because he's a switch hitter. I would put Robert batting 5th in center field, although that's probably against lefties. You could drop him a little bit against righties. Brett Beatty, I have tentatively plugged in at first base. Francisco Alvarez at catcher. Marcus Semien at second base. And then Carson Benj at left field. And then look at your bench. Luis Turin's a catcher. Ronnie Mauricio can play all over the infield. Tyrone Taylor, excellent center field defense, as we talked about before. And then the wild card is Mark Vientos. Can he find the form he had in 2024 as he helped guide the Mets deep into the playoffs? He had so many big hits, and last year he fell off like the Rangers did from 2 years ago to last year. That's how bad that fall. He was Quincy Williams this year is what he was. That was the fall Mark Vientos had. So I feel better about the lineup. I don't expect much to change as far as position players go, but watch out for the pitching staff because the Mets do need to add another pitcher in my mind. Whether it's a starter or a reliever, I'll take either one. I did see they signed Luis Garcia, who was with the Nationals last year. You know what? Fine. To me, the Mets had 4 reliable relievers. That was it. And they're going to need a lot more than that. And the Yankees, hey, they brought back Cody Bellinger, which I think most people expected to have happen. 5 years, $162.5 million. Opt-outs after years 2 and 3, a full no-trade clause. Here's the translation. They're treading water, okay? They have brought back the same team, and what they're betting on is the addition of a full year of these pitchers. Garrett Cole did not pitch last year. You add in Cam Schlittler for a whole year. You add the relievers they got the deadline, David Bednar, Camilo Doval, having them for a full year. They're hoping that will do the trick as well. But the Yankees have not really signed a bit of even a moderate free agent from outside the organization. They're about the only team to not do that. Very, very surprising. So, hey, Brian Cashman believes in running this thing back. Let's see if it actually works. A couple other things here in the chat. I see we got Steven D9956. Love the content. Keep it up. Well, thank you for the kind words, and I certainly plan to do so. I definitely appreciate it. And then we've got Pa2K99. Sorry, I'm a little late. We'll let it go. We'll let it go this week. Pa2K99. Yeah. Hopefully he'd be proud of both of us. 20 years. Yeah, I got your text earlier today for sure. All right, so let's, guys. I think it's time to get into the main content. So, oh boy, I don't know if I have a chant in me right now, and so let's just say it to what it is about the Jets.
This is the New York Jets, where careers come to die, and the worst memories of your life are born.
And that basically sums it up. So, again, hopefully the volume is good. If everything's clear, let me know since we're using 2 monitors. So I've got a different sort of setup than what I usually have. All right. I did want to talk about the divisional games. I want to give my thoughts on that. And I think we knew it would be tough for this round to live up to the hype, to live up to the wild card round, which was amazing. You know, you had 2 great games and 2 just garbage games. I mean, some of those games were so bad, I almost had to turn on the WNBA. That's how I almost turned on, professional disc golf. That's how bad it was. But Bills Broncos, and we're gonna have to talk about the Bills for a few minutes here with everything that's gone on. Amazing win by Denver, 33-30 in overtime. And I gotta say this: it's time to start blaming Josh Allen for some of the stuff that goes down with the Bills. Okay, the fumble late in the second half that gave the Broncos 3 critical points at halftime. The overthrow to Dawson Knox, which would have been a walk-in touchdown on 3rd down late in the game. All right, and instead the Bills had to settle for a game-tying field goal. He had 3 turnovers in this game. In fact, it was nearly 4. Yet 95% of what I saw online after the game was people blaming the referees. The referees are making it about themselves. The referees decided to get too involved. I feel so bad for Josh Allen. You know what? With all due respect to him as a player, screw Josh Allen. I say that with no disrespect whatsoever, but I'm tired of people going out of their way to protect him and not assign a little bit of blame to him. He deserved it. He did not have a good game. James Cook, he stunk. He fumbled, league's leading rusher. Joey Bosa, the pass rusher they brought in, he was invisible unless he was getting a penalty called against him or slamming his helmet against the wall as the Bills were walking off the fields as losers yet again. These are the type of people to blame. Now, if you want to say the first DPI was kind of questionable, okay, I thought it was a penalty. But the second one, to me, no discussion. There's no discussion to be had. It was a blatant penalty. Trey White grabbed the arm. He did not turn around. It was interference all the way. And on the first one, the first penalty, remember, if that wasn't called, Joey Bosa roughed Bo Nix, and it would have been 15 yards anyway. So that would have moved the ball even further down the field. Okay. Now, as far as Denver goes, as soon as I heard Bo Nix broke his ankle, my heart sank. Not necessarily for him, but just because you knew at that moment the Patriots were going back to the Super Bowl. Didn't you know? Haven't you seen enough of Satan's favorite football team to know that as soon as the news came down about Bo Nix and Jarrett freaking Stidham was going to be playing quarterback, it was all the Patriot fans were booking the hotel rooms already in San Francisco. You know they were. You know it. Oh my gosh, it just made me sick. Just made me sick. I do feel for the guy. He gets hurt late in overtime, and it's like, really? All you've got is Jarrett Stidham and Sam Ehlinger? Can't Jay Cutler, Brian Greasy, John Elway, hell, Tim Tebow, can he come out of retirement for one game? Please, anything to keep New England out of the freaking Super Bowl. Please. Just keep them out. Eagle fan, you know what is sad? The Jets still have the worst coach in the division. Well, Buffalo doesn't have a coach, and Miami hired somebody who has never done it before, so let's find out what happens next year, Eagle Fang. I'm not ready to say that. I'm just not. So, a lot of questions still to be answered. I will say this. We're going to talk about the coach openings in a little bit, but I'll be very interested to see what direction the Bills go. Billy says the refs were awful. Billy, I can't kill the refs in the spot, man. I thought those pass interference calls were the correct calls. I really, really did. I know we don't, as fans, we don't want games like that to end on pass interference penalties. And that is 100% fair. That is absolutely fair. But if that penalty was called in the regular season, like week 8 of the regular season, would you have been saying the refs were awful? It's just something to think about. Billy does that. Billy and I going a little head-to-head tonight. Okay, that's okay. We want the Pats in the Super Bowl so Sammy can hand them a 40-point loss. I don't need 2 weeks of Patriots hype, to be honest with you. I don't. I'm wearing orange partially for the Mets, but also to help support Denver a little bit. I don't know. But, yeah. And I saw one of the content creators, won't say who, but that the worst-case scenario was Seahawks-Patriots. Why do I have a problem if the Seahawks make the Super Bowl? I have no issue with Sam Darnold whatsoever. If he makes the Super Bowl, I'll feel good for him because he was in a better situation. And again, the fan base that should be livid is Minnesota. They let him go in free agency after he had been good for them. That's the part. Carolina, they could be a little upset too. San Francisco, maybe not so much. But it's amazing how people want to make this about the Jets. They love to make it all about us. I am so looking forward to the days of that finally stopping. And as far as Niners Seahawks goes, didn't you know on the first kickoff when Rashid Shaheed takes it back to the house, that game was done? It was done. Kenneth Walker, 3 rushing touchdowns. I got to say, Kenneth, where was that during the regular season for my fantasy team? It still turned out okay, but still. Brock Purdy, he didn't have a chance. Pressured on 58% of his dropbacks. Seattle played as complete a game across the board as you could play. And then after Seattle put up 41 points, people were questioning if Robert Saleh would get a head coaching job. And as it turned out, we got our answer 48 hours later when he goes to Tennessee. And again, I've got no problem with Sam Darnold going to a Super Bowl and winning. It wasn't happening with the Jets. It wasn't happening in Carolina. He was not going to get a chance in San Francisco. The Vikings are the fan base that should be livid. Okay? That's my thoughts on that. Texans, Patriots, the less said, the better. C.J. Stroud was an embarrassment. I had said over the course of this season, I would look to bring him in. If Houston didn't want to extend him, maybe they wouldn't. I'll tell you this. What has happened to him since his rookie year? Was Bobby Slowick that instrumental with him that when he left, everything just fell apart? It doesn't make sense, but I know this. Stroud was not ready for the moment. And yes, I know they didn't have Nico Collins. I know Dalton Schultz went down, but I blame D'Amico Ryans for not putting in Davis Mills. And I'm going to go back and say it again. Could New England have it any easier? I mean, you face the Chargers, who had no offensive line to speak of. You face it's amazing. You face Houston, where C.J. Stroud was basically he made Sam Darnold. He looked like Sam Darnold in the Ghost game years ago. You know, he made Luke Falk look credible. He made Brady Cook look good. He was so bad. And now now they face Denver on the road, and Denver doesn't have their starting quarterback. But unless that Denver defense, it's a good defense, but it's not Seattle. It's not Houston. Unless they turn into like the 2000 Ravens, they're not winning. Sean Payton, I wish you the best. This is the coaching task of your life. Good luck. And as far as Rams Bears goes, I actually went out for this game with a friend. We actually went to the Anchor Bar. And if you've heard of the Anchor Bar, yes, that is the bar in Buffalo where the Buffalo chicken wing was invented or became popular. They won James Beard Awards, although the last one was 20 years ago. And they have several locations around the country now. And I got to go and try some of their wings and had a real good time. The garlic parm, amazing. Thick as can be. Those are they're big wings, never frozen wings, and the sauces are thick. Chipotle barbecue, pretty good too, but I didn't taste a whole lot of chipotle in it. Just, pretty good barbecue. But it was amazing. The Rams take the game in overtime against the Bears. I had to tell people at the bar that I knew who the thicker kicker was, okay? But really, this is the game I was looking forward to the most, and it was maybe the best game of the year, right up there. Every yard felt like a battle. Matthew Stafford threw no touchdowns, was sacked 4 times, but that Rams defense, they were amazing. Kobe Durant, Cameron Curl, they stood out, and I'll tell you this. We know the Jets are starved for a big-time safety. Cameron Curl will be a free agent again this year. With that interception he had on Caleb Williams, he just made himself a whole lot of money. A whole lot. Now, Caleb Williams, you can't write the verdict on what his career is going to be. You see the high ceiling, but you still see some questionable decision-making. 2 touchdowns with 3 interceptions. You see the amazing touchdown pass at the end of regulation to Cole Kmet when the Rams defender, I don't know what he was doing. He basically, I don't know if they were confused on if it was zone versus man or who was covering who, but he had coverage on Kmet, and as the ball started to fall down, he decided, let me give him some space and let him catch the ball uncontested. It was so bizarre. But then you have that inexplicable interception in overtime when the Bears were driving down the field. But credit to the Bears. They gave us an amazing show, and now the Rams advance for match number 3 in Seattle. Okay. Let's talk a little bit of Jets news. Now, as far as Monday's national championship game, what is there really to say? Mendoza to me was not outstanding, but he made big plays when he needed to. That touchdown run was fantastic. Carson Beck, he was just a guy. He was a Jag. Nothing more, nothing less. I can't see using anything more than a 4th-round pick on him. I just can't, because he has been incredibly well protected this season, and he put up nice numbers. If you give him just a middle-of-the-road offensive line, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. I could see a situation where he's a pretty good backup for a while, but I can't go any higher than a day 3 pick on him based off what I saw this past Monday. All right. So that's my thoughts on the quarterbacks. Sean McDermott, let's talk a little bit here because this really does tie into the Jets. I had a weird feeling when the Bills couldn't advance to the AFC title game at least in an AFC playoff field that was so open, something was going to change. And Monday morning around 9 a.m., 9 years came to an end. By the way, in those 9 years, 8 playoff appearances. Can you imagine if the Jets made the playoffs 8 times in 9 years? Oh, my God. McDermott won at least 10 games in each of the last 7 years. He finishes his time in Buffalo with a record of 98 wins and 50 losses. That's a .662 winning percentage. No Jet coach has a winning percentage that high, unless you count the one interim game that Ron Washington was coaching. That Washington was coaching, right? That's Ron Middleton was coaching. I said Ron Washington. I meant Ron Middleton. Anyway. But it still wasn't enough. They never got to the big game, and he was let go. To me, it was like the Knicks firing Tom Thibodeau. Good roster, steady contention in the mix, but management felt they had to make a move like that to go one step further. And I can't imagine if McDermott wants a head coaching job, and I haven't heard any rumors yet, he's going to get a job somewhere. But my thing looking at Buffalo, how are they getting a better coach? I mean, I look at this roster. I thought this roster took quite a step back. You have a lousy wide receiver room. You have a defense that got old seemingly overnight. You have a very good running game. But I think outside of the running game, what do you really have to work with? So if I'm the Bills, I need one of 2 things in my new head coach. I need a Super Bowl because they fired this coach because he didn't get there, and I'm not sure who you're getting. I don't think Mike Tomlin is coaching next year. And to me, Sean McDermott and Mike Tomlin are very, very similar. I almost feel like you need a little bit of a fresh perspective. Or I need the hottest young offensive mind that's out there on the market and hope that he will work in sync with Josh Allen. Now, the thing is, Allen and McDermott work together beautifully. Who's to say the connection will be that good with the new head coach? Now, the heavy expectation from a lot of people is that Brian Daboll will come back and he will be head coach. Of course, he used to be the offensive coordinator over there. Some are asking if they would promote Joe Brady. I don't see that happening. I don't think this is a situation where you promote from within. I think a voice from the outside is needed with some fresh ideas and a clear perspective. But think about this. If somebody had told you at the beginning of the season in September, by the end of the season, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Bills would all change head coaches, would you have believed that? I know I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have even taken 2 out of 3 on that. But there are now 10 total head coach vacancies in the NFL. 4 of them are now filled. Giants hire Harbaugh. Dolphins hire Jeff Hafley. The Falcons hire Kevin Stefanski. And the Titans hire Robert Saleh. So here's what that leaves as we go on to the next slide. You've got Arizona, Baltimore, Buffalo, Cleveland, Vegas, and Pittsburgh. Now, if I'm looking at these jobs, Arizona to me is definitely the least desirable. Cleveland, the second to least desirable. Just 2 franchises that are perpetual losers in a mess. You look at the quarterback situation. Yeah, Kyler Murray is there, but it looks like he's wearing out his welcome incredibly quickly. Cleveland's you have Myles Garrett, and that's about it. Okay. And then after that, I mean, I guess to me, for the 3 and 4 spot, it's a toss up between the Raiders and Pittsburgh. And with Pittsburgh, you'll get the loyalty of management, but I don't know if I like that roster very much right now. It's an aging roster. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to be back next year. I think he's about done. You're young in areas, but you're old in other areas. And let's face it, in Pittsburgh, the pressure is very, very high because they expect their coaches to be good. Right now, Mike McCarthy is very closely connected to them. Let's see if that happens. And as far as the Raiders go, yeah, their roster is bad, but you know what? They got the number 1 overall pick, and that does mean something. And then for number 2 and number 1, you could go Baltimore or Buffalo. You could go either way. I'd probably give the slight edge to Buffalo, maybe slightly to Buffalo, but not by much, because you do have Josh Allen, but you have the pressure of needing to get to a Super Bowl. That's the one issue. So I think Baltimore would be more appealing to a wider variety of coaches. The Buffalo opening is for a very specific kind of coach. That's really my point here. So you could go either way, 1A, 1B with Baltimore, Buffalo. But that's my thought. Baltimore, I think, will work for more different coaches. Buffalo, you need a very specific kind of coach if you are going to succeed. So now, Billy SBC, the Titans just keep making the wrong choices. Hey, there's a reason why the worst teams stay the worst teams. It started when they let Mike Vrabel go. It was an absolutely idiotic choice. And we all knew it was an idiotic choice. Absolutely. As we know, the Jets go to Nashville next season. So here comes the revenge spot. Can't wait for that, can you? All right, let's talk about defensive coordinator vacancies. Now, the Jets are one of 3 teams that have only a defensive coordinator vacancy, the others being Dallas and Washington. So there is not a huge amount of competition right now, although as these other head coach vacancies get filled, they'll be looking to some of these upcoming candidates to fill their spots. Now, here's the deal. The Jets have interviewed 8 candidates, and those have all been done virtually. All right, so we're going to leave the screen up for a little bit. One of them, Matt Araujo, however you pronounce his name, he's going to Jacksonville, so I put the red X over him. That was announced Wednesday morning. He'd never been a coordinator in his career. No problem. I had very little interest in him anyway. So let's talk about these other 7 candidates, who they are. Let's talk about their history. Try to get a feel for if they might be a fit with Aaron Glenn and the New York Jets. And then I'm going to give you my ranking 7-1 on who I would like to see the New York Jets hire. All right. So I'm going to go alphabetically here. And number 1, and the first one we're going to talk about is Ephraim Banda. Ephraim Banda. Now, this is a big name. So, yeah, we're just kind of going alphabetically. So across row 1, then across row 2. So Banda, he began his coaching career as a student assistant at Incarnate-Word in 2011, became an assistant coach, a graduate assistant coach at Texas for 3 years, went to Mississippi State. Then he coached safeties at Miami from 16 to 18. Then he became a co-defensive coordinator for Miami in 1920. So he does have some experience there. Utah State. Then he becomes the assistant head coach / defensive coordinator / safeties coach. So Banda had a ton of responsibility for the 2 years at Utah State. And while he was there, the Aggies ranked second in the NCAA with 114 tackles for a loss, and then ninth with 94 tackles for a loss. So he had some playmakers, and he preached an aggressive defense. After that, 2023, he goes to the NFL, and he coaches the safeties in Cleveland. This past season, Cleveland ranked number 3 against the pass, and they were the only NFL team to not allow a 300-yard passer in 2024. Bando became defensive coordinator for the American team in the 2024 Senior Bowl. You get a job like that, you're on the rise. So he has also learned under Jim Schwartz over the last 2 years, who's definitely one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. And if you look at the total defense with the Browns, his teams have ranked in 2023, number 1, 2024, they ranked 18th, 2025, they ranked 4th. And that sounds good, except I don't see Myles Garrett on the Jets. Okay. Now, Banda has also interviewed for the Dallas DC job. Banda and Aaron Glenn are both natives of Texas. Banda likes to play fast, likes to play aggressive. He's about high accountability. He's about player intelligence. These themes match very well with Aaron Glenn's style. And I do want somebody with some coordinator experience, so even if it's college. Now, he hasn't done that in the NFL, but he did it at Miami, Florida, and he did it at Utah State. So that is Ephraim Banda. Patu K99. The Cowboys are so bad they need 2 defensive coordinators. Well, I just don't take one of the ones that I want, and we could have a conversation because I got a feeling that could happen. We go on to number 2, DeMarcus Covington, 36 years old. Banda, by the way, is 44 years old. Now, prior to joining the NFL, Covington coached at Eastern Illinois, UT Martin, University of Texas and Martin, Ole Miss, and University of Alabama at Birmingham. Covington is from Birmingham, Alabama, played wide receiver at Samford University, and he was hired last February by the Packers as their defensive line coach / run game coordinator. That happened after spending 8 years with the Patriots, including 1 year as defensive coordinator in 2024. So he was on the Gerard Mayo coaching staff. I'm not sure that's exactly the greatest endorsement you could have. But in his 6 seasons with New England as a position coach or coordinator, he helped the Pats rank number 3 in the league over that span in total defense and passing defense. They were number 2 in interceptions, 102 interceptions in 6 years. And yards allowed per play, 5.1 allowed. Third down percentage, 37. It's top 3 in just about every metric while he was on staff there. So, let's see. The Vikings just re-signed Brian Flores. Is it Zufa, my king? Let's see what we got here. Now the only way to get him out of Minnesota as a head coach. Wow. Okay. So they agreed to terms last week, but finalized it today, unless he gets a head coaching job. All right. So he gets a contract extension. Okay. Packers interviewed defensive backs coach Al Harris today for the defensive coordinator job. That's the name that I was hoping for. Yeah, that is. I was hoping for Al Harris, but I'm guessing he may. Connor Hughes actually said there were 2 highly thought of defensive coordinators who could be available that turned down the Jets. I'm wondering if Al Harris was one. Don't know if he was, but he could have been. Johnny, where's Rex Ryan? Jets haven't interviewed Rex. And to be honest, I don't think Rex would ever come back as a defensive coordinator. I don't think he would ever do. For him, it's head coach or it's nothing. And besides, Rex has such a good gig on ESPN. Why give up the job security? You know, I know he loves to coach, but Rex isn't coming back here just to be the DC. Because let's be honest, you bring Rex in, the head coach ain't the alpha male no more. Okay? It's Rex's show. We know how that goes. So Covington spent 6 years with Belichick in New England in various roles. He has also interviewed with the Dallas Cowboys, and his only coordinator experience was that 1 year under Mayo. So that's DeMarcus Covington. Then we go to Chris Harris, 43 years old, 6th-round pick of the Bears in 2005, played for 8 years with the Bears, appeared in a Super Bowl. In 2025, he was the Jets DB coach, pass game coordinator, and as we know, he became the Jets DC after Steve Wilks got kicked to the curb. And he had worked the previous 2 years with Tennessee. He has also coached with Chicago, the Chargers, and Washington. The thing with Chris Harris, he was put in a very, very rough spot as the Jets interim DC, especially those last 3 games as the organization, they had turned the page to 2026. And he had to use some players who, let's be honest, would be lucky to be on a practice squad next year. But still, the Jets allowed 35 points per game. So I will say this about Harris. I thought he did a good job developing some of the younger players in the secondary. Jarvis Brownlee, A.Z. Thomas, Quantez Stiggers, Malachi Moore. He is respected. His only coordinator experience is with the Jets. I would like to see him come back. I'm just not sure I want him back as a defensive coordinator. Hopefully it would work out, but I can't say I'm confident that it would. All right. Then we go on to Durante Jones. We go to the bottom row, and we talked quite a bit about Durante Jones last week, but just to go through it again, he is from the Capitol Heights area of Maryland, played at Morgan State in Baltimore, and coached at several levels of football. He became the Dolphins' assistant DB coach in 2016 and 17, quarterbacks coach in Cincinnati in 18-19, 47 years old, and he just completed his 5th season with the Vikings as a DB coach and 3rd as their passing game coordinator. Now, this season, Minnesota had a really good defense. They came in number 2 against the pass, number 3 overall in yards per game, tied for 10th in takeaways with 21. That's a good decade for the Jets. And in 2024, the Vikings led the NFL in interceptions, passes defended, and interceptions per pass attempt. They also tied for the league high in takeaways. Now, we were just talking about Brian Flores. Well, if you can't get Brian Flores, how about one of his disciples? He has learned under Flores for the last 3 years, as well as under Mike Zimmer in 2020. And then in 2025, the Vikings had the 2nd best pass defense in the NFL as far as yardage goes, and they forced 21 turnovers, same as they did the previous year. So Jones has only been a defensive coordinator at LSU, but I like he has a good array of experience, 47 years old, so he's got a little bit of age on him, but not that much. And it seems like a natural progression that he is going to be in a position to become a DC very, very soon. So Durante Jones, that's another one. Then we get to the fans' favorite. I don't know if he is the odds-on favorite, but we get to number 36, Jim Leonhard. Now, he has been a very well-accomplished coach at the collegiate level at Wisconsin from 2016 to 2023, as well as Illinois. Played 10 seasons in the NFL. As we all know, he was a major piece on that Jets defense for 3 years. He played 40 games for the Jets in the regular season, and in 4 postseason contests, 14 tackles, 1 sack, a fumble recovery, 2 forced fumbles, 2 passes defended. He's 43 years old. He's in his 2nd season with the Broncos, and it's also his 1st as defensive pass game coordinator / assistant head coach. That's right. Okay. He has been with Denver for 2 years. And after just 1 year, Sean Payton noticed how good Jim Leonhard was, and he promoted him to assistant head coach. That tells you right there his readiness to take that next step up and become a defensive coordinator in the National Football League. Now, the Broncos, as we know, they've been fielding one of the NFL's best defenses over the last 2 years. This year, number 1 in yards per play, 4.46. Pass yards per play, 5.37. In 2024, the Broncos allowed the 6th fewest passing touchdowns with 22, the 6th lowest passer rating against 86.2, and he's been learning under Vance Joseph, and he's been part of what probably is the NFL's best, if not best, the 2nd best defense over the last 2 years. And before the Broncos, he called plays for the Badgers from 2017 to 2022. He has also interviewed with the Cowboys. There were rumors that the Giants might have some interest in him, but that was about a week or 2 ago. But he has a really, really good reputation around the league. And don't forget this. Darren Muji was in Denver for a long, long time. He was there last year when Jim Leonhard was, so their paths might have crossed. And Aaron Glenn was his assistant defensive backs coach when Jim Leonhard was playing for the Browns in 2014. So Glenn and Leonhard know each other. So Glennard. Can't you? I like it. Oh, my God. That's got a ring to it. Glennard. Oh, my gosh. I could dream about that one. Oh my god. The Glennard headlines would be amazing. All right, but seriously, let's go on to Wink Martindale. Now, this is the most polarizing one of the 7 candidates. So, 65 years old, clearly the most experienced and the most advanced in age. So, he was the University of Michigan's defensive coordinator for 2 years, has over 2 decades of coaching in the NFL. He's been a defensive coordinator at 3 stops. Worked with 4 franchises over 20 years. So he's worked with the Raiders, the Broncos, the Ravens, and the Giants. Now, Michigan did not have a great defense last year, but Wink did do well with the Giants and Ravens. I know his tenure in New York did not end well because of a personality conflict with Brian Dable. Now, the thing with Wink Martindale, he gets results, but he is incredibly stubborn. Nobody blitzes as much as he does. But we know Aaron Glenn loves aggressive natures. And Martindale fits the bill. Supposedly, the two of them have been talking since December, so they've been getting to know each other to see if this might possibly be a fit. And remember, the Jets, the Jets had no identity on defense whatsoever in 2025. No positive ones anyway. But his Giants had 18 interceptions in 2023. And then in 2025, 3 games against ranked opponents. Here's the thing. Martindale's defense allowed an average of 30.7 points per game. Now, you could say, is that on the scheme or is that on the players? And Michigan also allowed over 400 yards in each game to those opponents. Now, the biggest knock I see on him is he's too stubborn. His designs are too predictable. He's a little bit too old school. Here's the one thing I'll say about Aaron Glenn. I want a defensive coordinator who is sort of the yin to his yang. And what I mean is Glenn is very motivational. Okay, he knows how to give a speech. He could do those things well when he has, good players. I don't know if X and O's are his strength. I would like a defensive coordinator who's a little more schematic, a little more cerebral. Somebody who has that mental edge. I don't know if it's Martindale who would be that kind of a coach. And that's why I'm not sure that it's the right fit for Martindale to come to the Jets. Even though he has about 7 seasons of experience being a defensive coordinator in the NFL, I'm just not sure that it's the right fit. Let's look at one more. Jim O'Neill. Now, he is 47 years old, just completed his 2nd season with the Lions after adding safeties to his defensive assistant title in 2025. He worked under Aaron Glenn when he was the defensive coordinator in 2024. And while he was safeties coach, he had Kirby Joseph register an NFL high 9 interceptions. Brian Branch became a first-team All-Pro player and a Pro Bowl player. The Lions' defense was tied for 2nd fewest passing touchdowns allowed and the lowest opposing passer rating. Before coming to the Lions, O'Neill was Northwestern's defensive coordinator for 2 years, spent 3 years with the Raiders. He was the San Francisco 49ers DC in 2016 and was the Cleveland Browns defensive coordinator in 2014-15. The other thing I like about his resume, he was a defensive quality control coach in 2009. He was actually with the Jets from 2009 to 2012. So after becoming defensive quality coach, he then became an assistant defensive backs coach for 3 years. So he worked with Rex for 4 years. And during that time, the Jets defense combined to rank 1st in the NFL in opposing passer rating, completion percentage, and passing yards per game. So O'Neill does have a way of getting results out of his units. And he has been a defensive coordinator 3 times, but not necessarily to the greatest results. But Aaron Glenn has a closer relationship to O'Neill than anybody else that we've talked about so far. O'Neill was on Glenn's defensive staff with the Lions in 2024, and Glenn was on O'Neill's staff with Cleveland in 14-15 when O'Neill was defensive coordinator. So that is something to keep in mind as well. All right, so those are the 7 coordinators that could still be hired as of now. Now, let's look at the process and at big picture. So the list will shorten soon for in-person interviews, which will happen in the near future. Now, the Jets have been very, very quiet about who they've interviewed. Like, they have asked agents and beat writers to not reveal names of who is being interviewed. That is how quiet they have kept these things. And then they just released a tweet. We have completed interviews with the following candidates, and boom, that was it, right? So it may be a situation where the Jets will just suddenly announce a hiring and we'll be completely caught off guard. That is not That is not out of the question. But during the offseason, at the season-ending press conference, Aaron Glenn was asked what he wants in a defensive coordinator. And here's what he said, I'm going to quote here. Compatibility is just as important as coachability. So I want to make sure we see things the same way, and I want to make sure that we can vibe as far as sitting down and talking about how we see football, end quote. So what that tells me is aggressive mindset and a scheme fit. That is going to be important. And I'll tell you this, 6 of the 7 NFL assistants who interviewed for the position are with teams that ranked in the top 14 in blitz percentage. So the Jets have been very deliberate with what coaches they're interviewing and what teams they came from. And like I've alluded to, remember, Dallas and the Jets are interviewing several of the same candidates. Dallas has already interviewed Leonard, Jones, Bonda, and Covington as part of their process to get a new defensive coordinator under Junior Shoddy. So that's 4 of the 7 names the Jets have spoken to. So we talked about all these names. How would I rank these particular coaches? What would my preference be? So here's what I would say. Number 7 to me is Chris Harris. I just don't think you could sell the fan base on that. I just don't think you can. I think he's going to look for a new opportunity. Jim O'Neill, despite the relationship with Glenn, I just don't see results. I don't see innovation. I don't see inspiration, other I words that end in shun. So yeah, I just don't feel it from O'Neill. To me, he is meant to be really a coordinator at this stage in his career. DeMarcus Covington just doesn't really move the needle for me. And when your only year of being a defensive coordinator is under Gerard Mayo in that 4-win season, that doesn't give me the best feeling. Wink Martindale does get results, but to me, it is very much a all or nothing, where you hope you get results quickly and then it probably is going to fade away. You wonder about the personality situation. And again, sometimes you have to get creative. It's not just, okay, you know what's coming and we're going to go beat your ass. Sometimes you got to use, it's a game of mental gymnastics. Sometimes you got to play chess when the other team is playing checkers, like faking a blitz, just as one example. Now, Ephraim Bonda, I am pretty intrigued by him. The way that he has steadily rose in the coaching ranks, how he has got results seemingly everywhere he's gone. I do like that. Durante Jones, I didn't think I would have him at number 2, but I am feeling pretty good about him. I like that he had 3 years under Brian Flores, and again, consistent results again and again. And number 1 to me is Jim Leonard. He is very, very well thought of. He is going to be a defensive coordinator soon, and I want it to be with us. I really, really do. Now I will say this: no matter who, we'll go ahead and get this out of here. No matter who the Jets bring in, they definitely need to bring a full influx of talent in, because we look at this right now. We look at this defense. How many legitimate starters are there on this defense? It's not many. It's not many at all. Some of them will have to start by default, but boy, there is no question the Jets need a fresh influx of talent on the defensive end, and it'll be very, very interesting to see where the Jets go as far as, does Aaron Glenn have his idea on what he wants the defense to look like? Does he want his defense, or does he see somebody else's vision and be like, I could go with that. I could see how this would work better than what I have in mind. I'm very curious about how headstrong Glenn is with needing to see his vision of a defense come to fruition. So let's see what winds up happening. All right, guys, hope everybody enjoyed that. And I think at this point, it is about time to do what we do every single week. You guys know the deal. Every week about this time, I bust open the books. I dust off the Encyclopedia Britannica. I open up the Jets Dark Web, and I, WatsuK99, challenge you, the most loyal fans of the most loyal fan base in the National Football League. Just how much do you know about your New York Jets? So if you are ready, and I trust you are ready, let's play Jets Trivia. All right, so you all know the rules. I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock. I will ask you the question. Put your answer or answers down there in the comments, and I'll let you know. And let's see if we can get the question within the 5-minute time frame. All right, chat, here we go. Tonight's question is a Jets playoff question. So, of course, This goes back to the days of black and white television. The question goes like this. Against Houston in 1991, it was a wild card game the Jets lost. Name the 3 Jets who rushed for double-digit yards. So 3 Jets had at least 10 rushing yards. Who were they? So I take a swig of water for the working man and woman. Now let's see if Nick Shine or Sharon McClain do a late run-in. Let's see. Let's see. Brian Flores is still in the mix on head coaching jobs despite his new deal with Minnesota. He interviewed with the Steelers earlier this week. And the Bills tomorrow will interview Brian Dable and Lou Anarumo. Today they interviewed Joe Brady. So not very surprising names. All right. All right, Billy SBC. There you go. Hey, Billy. Billy goes with Blair Thomas in 19. Blair Thomas get at least 10 yards rushing for the Jets in that game. Afraid not. David goes with Freeman McNeil. How about Freeman McNeil? No, afraid not. I think was Freeman McNeil even on the Jets in 1991? I think his career was probably about over by then. Yep, yeah, he was still with the Jets. Okay. All right, so it wasn't Freeman, and it wasn't Blair Thomas. I will say this: the leading rusher in the game for the Jets had 43 yards. Billy SBC goes with Brad Baxter. How about Brad Baxter? That is correct. Brad Baxter with a whopping 14 yards. 14 yards. Woo! How exciting. All right, Brad Baxter is 1. Can you get 2 more in the next 2 minutes and 30 seconds? And I'll probably be putting out my conference championship video. I think I'm going to have that out by Thursday night. I'm just going to record that Thursday night after I get home. So, yeah, hopefully in about 24 hours from now, that'll be out. Johnny Ola, 3,800, comes in with his fellow Johnny Hector. How about Johnny Hector? Is he correct? He most certainly is. He was the game's league-leading rusher for the Jets, 43 yards. So Johnny Hector is correct. All right, so we got Johnny Hector. We got Brad Baxter. There's one other Jet who had double-digit rushing yards in this game. Who could it have been? I've seen Blair Thomas. I've seen Freeman McNeil. Who else on the New York Jets might have had 10 yards rushing or more? I got a good fit, chat. I believe the chat's going to get this tonight. I believe in the chat tonight. Yeah. Just like I believe in Joe Hendry. I'm in London and Paris and Tokyo, America, Scotland and Canada and Mexico. All right. So we got a few new folks joining us in the chat. Hello, new folks. We are doing Jets trivia. So if you're just joining us, against Houston in 1991, name the 3 Jets who rushed for double-digit yards. We got Johnny Hector and we got Brad Baxter, but there is one more. Johnny Ola going with the immortal Browning Nagel. How about Browning Nagel? Oh, boy. It was not Browning Nagel. Definitely did not get the Jets to the playoffs. So
playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
And Billy SBC comes in with 30 seconds left. He says Ken O'Brien. Is it Ken O'Brien? It sure is. The correct answer is Johnny Hector, 43 yards. Brad Baxter, 14, and Ken O'Brien, 10 yards. So, Chet, you got this one correct. Well done, guys. Well done. With about 30 seconds left to spare, we get it correct. All right. Very, very cool. All right. So I think what we're going to do coming up, we'll get into a little bit of draft stuff. We'll get into some free agency as well. And we'll try to sort of maybe outline a little bit of a plan on what we want to see from this offseason, what needs to be done. I'm going to try to get specific, not just say hit the draft, hit on free agency, change the quarterback room, hire a good defensive coordinator. I'm going to try and get a little bit more granular than that. All right. So, and hopefully one of the first things will be signing Chris Banjo to about a 10-year contract, right? Oh. I know David D is here, and I know David likes the banjo music, so I dropped one in for you there. All right. So, yeehaw. Hey, I almost dropped the y'all at work today, guys. Okay, I'm down like country part of North Carolina where I work. Like the town I work in, it is the college, and that is the town. There's like a few little houses, a few little churches, and the college. That's the whole town. So yeah, I got some very, very country people where I work, like serious Carolina accents. It's pretty intense. So trying to not let it rub off on me too hard. But but they're good people. Yeah, for sure. So all right, guys. Well, like I said, I'll be doing the prediction video for the championship games coming up. That's probably tomorrow. I was going to do a video on the Luis Robert trade, but I just decided to put everything here during the 3 and out segment. I think that that'll more than suffice. So yeah, and I'm just out of words about the Rangers and Knicks. I am just so beaten down by both those teams right now. So, but hey, something else comes up, we will most definitely talk about it. And probably the next week or two, I'll try to start digging in, not just to the first round, but try to look at a few sleepers, because remember, the Jets got all those late picks, and over time we got to figure out what we're going to do with those late round picks. So I will try to get into that so that we can all be as prepared as we can for all 3 days of the draft, not just Thursday, but Friday and Saturday also. So we're going to do our best to get that as ready as we can. And hey, maybe we'll do a mock draft coming up. I'm done like I think maybe next week we'll do our first mock draft once we get a little bit of research done. So so how about that? Next week we'll do the trivia. We'll do a mock draft. Maybe we'll spin the wheel. Who knows? That's all up to you guys. But as always, I want to thank you guys very, very much for joining me tonight for the weekly Wednesday night live show. Always means a ton to me when you guys drop in and we get to chat it up. So, all right, enjoy the rest of your week. If you've got snow coming, make sure to leave the wipers up on your windshield. And hopefully you're not in a town like I am where all the milk, bread, and water will be raided right out of the freaking grocery store. But anyway, everybody, have a great week. Be well, stay safe. And as always, I'll see you right back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair. Good night, everybody.